Let's go. Welcome back into the Skooshi Sport Podcast and your continuation of your NRL 2026 season team previews. We have 3 to go. We have done 14. We've rattled them off 2 every single week for the last 7 weeks. I'm here with number 15 on the list, which is the Newcastle Knights. So that leaves 2 more, which just happens to be, honestly, I did these random, it just happens to be the Storm and the Eels. So I'll probably do those next week. I just want to see a bit more what's happening, if any more Zach Lomax news, that sort of thing. Does sound like it's going to court around mid-February though, so I probably won't have too much information between now and then, but they will be the last 2 team previews. And I've just completely done them at random. Honestly, I've literally just been asking ChatGPT to give me 2 random NRL teams every week to do a podcast on. That's how it spits out. But today I've got the Newcastle Knights. So the Wooden Spooners from 2025, they'll be definitely looking to improve. They can't get any worse. They can only get better. I've got some new players and obviously massive new recruits, new coaching, and hopefully a new season and a bit of new life for Newcastle. Probably some of the best, most loyal fans going around in the comp, in my opinion. All those seasons where they struggled at the bottom, you know, wooden spoon, that sort of thing, before this one here, they'll just continually turn up and turn up and turn up. And you just got to give so much credit and praise to the Novocastrians that continue to turn up for the team despite them on a high, despite them struggling. I'll never forget that finals match that they had against the Raiders. I think it was in 2023. And it was just absolutely packed out. And it was just one of the best crowds that you've sort of ever seen. One of the best atmospheres that we're seeing. Especially when, you know, Dom Young was going down that sideline. But nevertheless, I'm rambling on. I said we're up to our 15th team. We've rabbled out the other 14. The other said, if you're a fan of the other teams that aren't Knights, Storm, and Eels, make sure you go check out the other previous weeks and the other team previews that I've done to get you ready for 2026 NRL season. We are less than 2 weeks away from the first preseason games, the preseason challenge, and less than 5 weeks away from Vegas, baby. Holy crap. Cricket season's done. We're just now in this really awkward period for the next 2 weeks where, you know, there's only one game. Like, just got the Super Bowl left. You're kind of just making it through. You know, might be watching a bit of Netflix, but watch this sort of stuff. You might be sorting out your Supercoach team. NRL is just around the corner. So, also remember to give this a massive like, this video. Subscribe to the channel as well. Going to be coming at you plenty of NRL content during the year. Supercoach as well. Just brought out my first episode last week of the Trade Room, giving you my team reveal how to win Supercoach in 2026 as well. That is a really good video. Have a listen to it as well. If you are a rookie to Supercoach, this year is your first year, or if you've done it for a few years, get some good insights and tips to where I am looking for this year. But let's get straight into it. So Newcastle Knights, obviously the Wooden Spooners from last year, and same as every single team preview, I'm going to give you my ladder prediction for this year, which is from the ladder prediction I brought out over 2 months ago now, which just seems ages ago. Give you their 2025 recap, attack and defense, how they went. Give you my rundown of the 2026 games. Who do I think is going to make a bit of a difference to this team in 2026 compared to last year? And their losses from last year as well. Any sort of players leaving Newcastle, I think, will actually make a difference, whether that's good or that's bad. And then we're going to go run through their best 1 to 17, what I think they'll line up be in round 1, and what I think their team should be for the rest of the season, injury-free. And have a look at the rest of their depth squad as well. And then we're going to do a little analysis on their draw as well. How does the draw favor them heading into 2026? Wooden Spooners, but did they get the short end of the stick, or do they suddenly have favorable that, you know, they can actually get something going and maybe potentially reach finals footy in 2026? We know they play the Cowboys in Vegas to open up the season as well, which is really exciting for the Novocastrians and Newcastle as a whole as well. But let's get straight into it. So, Newcastle Knights, Wooden Spoons, I've got them coming 14th on the ladder for 2026. So, slight improvement on last year. I could not get any worse, as I said. So, do you think they'll show a bit of life, a bit of improvement? I've got some really good recruits in there. Justin Holbrook, new coach in there, 3-year deal. I think they had to do the right thing and get Adam O'Brien out of there. He clearly I get he had a lot of passion for the club. I get it. He made finals definitely a few times as well, consistently, but just felt like he really did lose the dressing room near the end there. Just a couple of things he would come out and say after the game in his presser regarding the fans, that sort of thing. I think it was starting to really take a hold on, you know, fans just really weren't kind of enjoying Newcastle footy as much as they were. They had like the worst attack last year, not by close, by a freaking mile as well. So they won 6 games and lost 18 games last year, only winning 25% of their games, which is pretty bad. Considering you look at this Newcastle team, on paper, it's not that bad. It should not be finishing last. They scored 338 points for the season. That was about 13 or 12 or 13 points a game. It was bloody embarrassing to watch this Knights attack. I think they went down as a record as having like the most clean sheets, I guess, didn't score a point in the first half. I think they had like 8 or 9 or 10 during the season, which is absolutely incredible when you think about it. Not to score a single point and a half. And then defense-wise, they finished 15th for the year, 638 points. So the defense was pretty much just as abysmal as their attack. So when you generally are attacking poor, that probably means you're getting less ball as well. Getting less opportunity, you're probably defending more. Defense gets tired, you're most likely defending, and that's how you end up finishing last. It's a pretty good combination right there. Points difference of minus 300. You look at a team like the Storm had a difference of over plus 200. That is a points difference between those two teams of over 500 points throughout the season, which I think is that is literally nearly like 20 points a game difference that these two like teams are going against. It's just incredible how poor this Newcastle team was last year. But nevertheless, they had to go and sign someone big. If there was one struggle, it's just their freaking halves last year. And even the year before, 2024, they could not make up their mind. Adam O'Brien, who was going to be their 7, who was going to be their 6, and the number 9 consistently to give Kalen Ponga good ball, to give him good opportunities. They just could not figure it out, and they finally went out and got a marquee sign. Dylan Brown, a 10-year deal. I think it's a $13 million deal. I've been saying 15, but $13 million deal. Obviously, there's some back-end stuff that goes with it as well. 10-year deal at the Knights. It's a lifetime contract at Newcastle, essentially. He's taken it. You can't blame him at all. A guy who, this signing happened during the NRL season last year, and he was playing pretty darn poor, honestly. And we thought, wow, this is a really big contract for someone that's probably not playing at his best at the moment. Went and played for the Kiwis. I thought he was unbelievable for the Kiwis. I think we can all agree here that he probably got robbed of that golden boot. Even Harry Grant said something similar, that he probably thought he didn't deserve it. But Knights had to go do something. They had to go sign a big player to partner Kalen Ponga there, and they have. They did not want to risk losing Kalen Ponga. They just would have been absolute devastating blow for the club there. Couple other signings they've got on the list. They've got Asu Kapoa from the Panthers on a 2-year deal. Handy little depth squad player there. Another guy I really like on this list, and maybe you're someone who doesn't watch or watches NRL probably casually, you may have not heard of this guy, but Trey Mooney. I think Trey Mooney is going to start in this Knights 4-pack. This Knights forward pack is looking pretty darn bleak to start the season, in all honesty. Big loss of Leo Thompson heading into this year. He was literally the alpha dog of their 4-pack. So they are looking for someone to essentially come and replace him, if not do better. I think Trey Mooney is going to fit that spot really well. Someone who just, obviously, due to how big the Raiders 4-pack is, with Papali'i, with Tarpany, with Horsburgh there as well, just didn't quite get much game time there with the Raiders. He has signed a 4-year deal with Newcastle, and I think he will play an essential part of this Knights 4-pack. Someone has to step up in this Knights 4-pack, and you can't be relying on a guy like Tyson Frizell or Jacob Saifiti. They're getting older as the years go by. Trey Mooney, he's still got some young age in the legs there. He has to be the guy that stands up for this Knights 4-pack and becomes that alpha dog there. I reckon he can play at least 50 minutes. I think he's got the motor to play at max 60 if needed, but I think it's a very good underrated signing for Newcastle. Supercoach players, definitely one to keep an eye on early on. A lot of people have started with him for sure, but yeah, one to keep an eye on. Trey Mooney said. Another one from the Canberra Raiders. I've got a couple coming from Canberra. That is Pasami Saulo. Another guy who I don't think makes the starting 13, but I think will definitely sneak in on the bench there. Was a really handy backup depth player for Canberra when needed. Had injuries, maybe to Zach Hoxing, or like Hudson Young was on origin duty, or Matty Nicholson was injured as well. Pasami Saulo just seemed to really step in there and kind of do a job for them as well. I believe Pasami Saulo actually played 5'8" for the Raiders to replace Ethan Strange in that final. I thought he did a job there as well. So yeah, handy little depth signing for Newcastle on the bench there. And then the other one that sounds like he's going to be the starting 7, and Justin Holbrook has got a relationship with him. Forgot to mention, Justin Holbrook has signed a 3-year contract with Newcastle as well, replacing Adam O'Brien. Sandon Smith. Sandon Smith has signed a 4-year contract with Newcastle. If you're going to sign a 4-year contract, I think I was more in the realms of, I'm going to get to it later, but, having Fletcher Sharp in your 6, potentially Dylan Brown the 7, or swap it around, Brown your 6, Sharp in your 7 there, Sandon as your 14 there, Phoenix Crossland as your number 9. But as the more and more we see in preseason, what we hear at a Knights training and all the mail that we get, it sounds like Sandon Smith will be the goal kicker, which I believe will mean he is the starting 7 for Newcastle. Dylan Brown will definitely be the 6th there in that case. It's just where do you put Fletcher Sharp in that situation there? It definitely means someone else on that back line actually has to move out, which I find very interesting. Definitely means Phoenix Crossland will lock down that number 9 role for Newcastle as well. But Sandon Smith, when he got his starts in the Roosters in the last few years, I thought he was very impressive. I think he did a job for Roosters before Sammy Walker came back last year. And then Sammy Walker came back with Hugo Savala. But I thought Sandon Smith, when needed last year, in the years before, I thought he has really stepped up. And I think he really deserves his 4-year contract. I think he really deserves to also have a starting opportunity in Vegas, just to give him a solid opportunity, not as a backup, but to be the key guy that manages the team around. Big question is, we know Dylan Brown, we've seen him in a 7 jersey before for Eels when Mitch Moses has been injured. He just struggles to manage a game, just struggles with the kicking game side of things. He is a running guy player. He is a guy that wants to create the tries. Sandon Smith has to be the guy that manages the gameplay for Newcastle. Big one is definitely the kicking game. Does he have a long enough boot for Newcastle to get them out of the shit if needed? Does he have a good short kicking game if needed? You can't be relying on Dylan Brown for that stuff all the time. Sandon Smith has to be the guy that gels with Dylan Brown and becomes that game manager, a guy in the last 20 minutes that can, make some tackles, but also manage a lead as well, kicked into the right positions. Really important start for Sandon Smith if he does get that starting 7 jersey in Newcastle there. There's definitely a couple options you can go there. Main thing for Newcastle with me is I just got to stick with the halves for at least 6-7 weeks together. This spine has to stick together for at least 6-7 weeks. I feel like the last 2 years, and I don't have this in front of me, they must have had so many halves combinations that they had, not because of injury. They just couldn't make up their freaking mind what they wanted to do. Tyson Gamble was 6, and then next week Tyson Gamble was 7, Jackson Hastings at 6, and then they put Hastings at 7. Then they get Fletcher Sharp in there, and then there'll just be all types of shit happening going on. Phoenix Crossland will be there as well. It's just way, way too much happening within that. Jack Cogger would be in there as well. Just way too much happening within Newcastle half, and they just couldn't get a good roll on whatsoever. So what I want to see from Newcastle is a solid set spine that they'll have for at least 6-7 weeks. If it's a disaster, sure, look to change something else. But we saw what Luke Metcalf did in Vegas last year. Absolutely shit the bed in his first game at halfback. He came back and he probably, if he didn't get injured, probably was going to be the Dalian Player of the Year. I'm not saying Sandon Smith is going to be Dalian Player of the Year, but if he shits it in Vegas, give him another chance at least. Knights don't have that many home games to start the season either. You've got to give him a good chance at that 7 to blend into the role with Dylan Brown there, with Kalen Ponga, with Phoenix Crossland there at 9 there, and just give him a chance. Otherwise, it'll absolutely shit me to tears. That pretty much rounds up your 2026 games. They've got Peter Holler on there as well, another depth signing coming from the Dolphins for 2 years. That'll be nice and handy for the Knights heading into this year. Now let's have a look at their losses. So their losses, they've got Jake Arthur is one of the main ones, heading off to Hull FC in the Super League this year. So that's good for him. Obviously Brad, the son of Brad Arthur, was the backup at Parramatta for a little bit there. Just didn't quite get the game time at Parramatta. Didn't get the game time at Manly. Didn't quite get the game time at Newcastle as well. I'm not sure where he fits into that Hull FC team in the Super League, but I assume he would kill it, nice and young. He's not that bad. He's just not quite NRL standard. Jaden Brayley, one of the more surprising sort of exits, I guess. We probably knew he wasn't too happy at Newcastle last year. I was more surprised at the fact he probably went off to Canberra, where there's a couple number 9s there already. But you look at Phoenix Crossland, he was a starting number 9 for the Kiwis at the end of the year. I thought he absolutely killed it there as well. They got Tyson Gamble, who can come in the 14 role there as well. So Jaden Braley, he's definitely more of a big minutes guy. I'm not sure. He's not really an impact sort of number 9. I would rather have Phoenix Crossland in that 9 role for a long time. They mixed it up with Phoenix at the 13 role a bit last year, which I thought worked for a little bit there. But I think Jaden Braley had to find a new club, and I think they've done the right thing. A couple little ones here. Paul Bryan off to Manly. Jack Cogger back to Penrith there. Another guy who he would have a couple games in the halves, maybe just didn't quite get his opportunity. Adam O'Brien was just sick of it, just didn't find what he was looking for. Had a couple games in the halves in Newcastle last year, just didn't quite fit in. He's gone back to Penrith where he was underrated the 2023 part of the grand final comeback there when Luai went off there. Another one which is interesting, this happened about a month ago, and that's Adam Elliott going off to South. So I didn't actually know this one was coming at all. Wasn't sure of what his contract was looking like. But Adam Elliott, really good signing for South. So I'm not sure how much of a big loss it is for the Knights. Guy is probably getting a little bit older, maybe coming off the bench for the Knights. But I think it's a really handy depth signing for South. Got guys like Jack Hetherington, a guy that just didn't quite fit in Newcastle. Just seemed to, whenever he got on, just seemed to give away a penalty. Just never quite got his opportunity. I don't think Adam O'Brien and him really got along. That is not written down anywhere. That's not proven. That's just what I think. Riley Jones off to the Sharks. Another good little young depth signing for the Sharkies there. A little bit of a loss there for Newcastle. Probably the big one for the Knights is Kai Pearce-Paul heading off to the Tigers. A guy that came over from the Super League a couple years ago. I believe he was at Wigan. I could be very wrong there. And kind of struggled on that left side in that first year. And then he got transitioned to the right side, a right-hand ball player. And his way he started to offload the ball was unbelievable. Such a shame the Knights couldn't keep him there, but they have got younger guys there that can actually fit his spot, which I really like. We'll talk about him a little bit later on. But that is probably a big loss for the Knights, definitely heading into this year. Kai Pearce-Paul off to the Tigers. I'm not sure what his contract is like. I think it's a few-year contract, but he'll be in Australia for a bit. He is an absolute weapon, I think, KPP. Will Price, same deal. Played a couple games in the halves of Newcastle, just didn't quite get his opportunity. He's gone back to the Super League to play for Hull FC. Sebastian Silva, another guy that just didn't quite get too many games for the Knights. He's gone to the Dolphins. And the big one that we talked about, Leo Thompson, along with KPP, is the big loss in the forward pack there. He was the alpha dog, the aura of that that forward pack there that actually gave him some sort of a forward movement. Guy that could, not play a lot of minutes, but just the way he hit the ball with his runs there, the way he made the tackles as well. He's gone off to the Doggies, as we know. He'll fit into the Doggies perfectly, I think. But is where what I spoke about, Trey Mooney really needs to step up into that role and become that alpha dog, kind of like your Leo Thompson. Not be Leo Thompson, be Trey Mooney, but they need a guy like Leo Thompson there that can be the alpha dog in that lineup. His brother Tyrone Thompson has gone to rugby union. I'm not sure whether he's looking to play the World Cup next year here. Not sure what's happening there. Let's have a look at their best 1-17, and this is based off definitely sort of my opinions and then what we've heard in the preseason as well, and how I think they should be lining up for Vegas and round 1. I think the best team that they should be lining up for the season to give them the best chance of playing finals footy. Fullback, without a doubt, we know there's Kalen Ponga. Seems to get injured every year, whether it's a foot or an ankle, that sort of thing. Shoulder as well. Missed probably half of the year last year. Not in the Maroon squad, not in the Australian squad. And we know how talented KP can be on this day. 2023 Dally M medalist. I get that's a few years ago now. I don't think much has changed with KP. I just think he needs to be surrounded by better talent. And that's not to say it's an excuse for his poor performances. I just think he needs a little bit better quality around him. Like we see him when he goes to Origin level, he just really steps it up when he puts on that Queensland jersey. But tie 2 and 2 together. He had DC here around him. He had Munster around him. He had Harry Grant there as well. Now he's got a little bit better players. I think we'll see a bit better performance from KP this year, or I hope so, because I absolutely love KP and what he can bring to the game. On your wings here, I've gone for Dom Young on the right wing. come back from the Roosters last year, has to start on that right wing. One of the best try scorers that we have seen of like the year, essentially, when he was at the Roosters or even the Knights as well. And then from what we're seeing in the preseason, I think you got to go Fletcher Sharp on the left wing there. Fletcher Sharp, like obviously he played 5'8" a lot of last year before he got injured, but people forget when he debuted. He actually debuted on the wing, or even potentially center. Definitely remember him on the wing though. So people actually forget he is mainly a winger. He's just so freaking talented with the ball and how he goes about the ball and the pace that Adam O'Brien just actually wanted him in the halves. He's a winger. Like, people actually forget I said he is a winger. He'll be fit fine on that wing. That obviously means it's the departure of Greg Marzhew. One of these guys has to go, whether it's Greg Marzhew or Dominic Young. I think you got to get Fletcher Sharp in this team. I think Fletcher Sharp is probably easily top 3 players in this Knights 13 here. He was unbelievable, I thought, for the Knights last year before he got injured, which is such a shame. But Fletcher Sharp, I think you got to have him starting somewhere. If it's not going to be the 7 role where Sandin is, or the halves, I think you got to have him there on the wing. The centers haven't changed for a little bit now. Dane Gagai on the right center, Bradman Best on the left center there. Or is it the other way around? Excuse me. But we know what these two guys can bring. Both Origin caliber players. Bradman Best, he gets so freaking close every year, and it seems like an injury sets him back, or just something sets him back from getting more into the Origin arena. Dane Gagai, we know he can produce it in the Origin arena. Probably just a little bit past it now to be making in the Origin arena. A lot of talented Queensland players around in that centre position that can fit there. But still, such an underrated player, I feel like, and someone who's still in their 30s and is just still producing such good footy. I get it, Dane Gagai can absolutely cop it criticism-wise, but man, you watch his games and he is so underrated for this Knights team and the influence that he has on this team, whether it's defensively, whether it's on attack, just seems to break that extra tackle and open up the gameplay a bit for the Knights. In your halves there, so we spoke about it pretty much all so far this podcast. In your 6, I'm going to go for Dylan Brown, their marquee signing. That's without a doubt there. I don't think he should be 7, and it was proven at Parramatta. That means in your 7 role, I've got Sandon Smith there, getting his starting role there in Vegas. I want the absolute best for Sandon Smith. I really like it. As I said, I thought he really took advantage of opportunities and really played well and took this Roosters team when he was called into that 7 role when Sammy Walker wasn't there, or in that 6 role there. So I think he deserves that spot there at the 7. I just wanted to see him get that opportunity for more than 5 weeks. Come on, Holbrook. Give him that opportunity. If he has a bad game, who gives a fuck? It's early in the season. Just let these guys gel together. In your front row, so we spoke about Trey Mooney, gets your number 1 spot there, and then I'm going to go for Jacob Saifidi, guy that has played Origin a couple of games before. Jacob Saifidi, look, he's getting a little bit older. The legs aren't as much as it was back, 4 or 5 years ago. But him with Trey Mooney, I think it's one of the weaker forward packs that we've got in the comp this year, admittedly. But is there still potential? Is there still a little bit of life there? 100%. Trey Mooney has to step up, though. Number 9 role, gone for Phoenix Cross on there. Started number 9 for the Kiwis in the Pack Champs last year. Thought he absolutely killed it there as well. I thought he was really impressive. JMK was, I think he had HIA or he's injured for something there. So I think he gets a starting 9 role there, and I think he'll go close to playing 80 minutes as well, because who I've got at 14 there. In your second row, I think this is one of the most underrated second rows. We've got Dylan Lucas, obviously, on your left side. Dylan Lucas, unbelievable. Someone, as a Queenslander, I think I would be shit scared if I saw him on the bench as like a utility sort of player. A guy that can play center, can play front row, can put him in the middle if needed. He is an absolute weapon. I would be more scared as a Queenslander seeing Dylan Lucas on the bench than I would seeing like a Hudson Young or Ola Kawatu on the bench there. I think Dylan Lucas literally opens up so much of the game for the Newcastle Knights. He was unbelievable last year, I thought, before he got injured, and I think he'll come back and be unbelievable. Tyson Frizzell then fits into my lock role there. Now, could be a world where Tyson Frizzell needs a bit of a break. Maybe put Phoenix into that 13 role, and then you get Tyson Gamble onto that number 9 there role for a little bit there. Not quite sure how to work. Maybe put Tyson. I can't imagine putting Tyson to the 7, put Sand to the 9 for a bit. That just seems strange. But Tyson Gamble is my 14. Little handy utility. Can play in the halves. Can play a little bit of a 9 if he needs to as well there. So, but that does mean Phoenix Crossland does play majority of minutes in that number 9 role, but I think he'll be absolutely fine. In your bench, this is where there's kind of a bit of an open sort of shot, right? A lot of sort of forwards can actually make this bench here. So I've gone for Tyson Gamble in a 3-forward bench. You got Brodie Jones there. His brother, I think his brother's Riley Jones, has gone off to Cronulla. But Brodie Jones, really sort of handy young forward that's coming through. Pasami Solo coming over from Raiders. Again, another really handy young player. Good sort of utility. Can play in the forwards. Can play lock if he needs to. Maybe he comes off as Brazil. Can play a little bit of half as we spoke about if needed be as well. Then a young fella. I'm going to give this guy a shot on the bench to start in Vegas. And I really like this guy. He's 21. I think he's 22 this year. I only played a handful of games off the bench for Knights last year. Might butcher his name. Is Elijah Salisa Leimoana. I think he is like Tongan / Kiwi, grew up in New Zealand there. He is a young edge second rower there. I said literally 21, 22 there. Only played a handful of games, did score a try for Newcastle last year. I think he takes a little bit more of a step up this year. If he's going to be the guy who's coming off the bench last year, I'd like to see him get a bit more minutes this year. Potentially, if there's an injury, get the start. So that means, as I said, it's very open when it comes to the bench. You've got still guys like your Thomas Kant on the bench. You've still got a couple guys on that bench that I think could definitely make, in the reserves that could make that bench for sure. Just not quite there yet. Look at the rest of the squad. The main guy that's missing is obviously Greg Marzhew. Greg the leg guy that's an absolute been a tank for the Knights for a very long time in that left wing there. Greg Marzhew, we know what he can do on his good day, but it seems like his bad day is pretty average as well. He gets awesome meterage out of his own half. I'm picking that will be the big difference between him and Fletcher Sharp in this situation. But I think the skill, execution, and the finishing that you get from Fletcher Sharp, along with the pace on the wing, is where he'll actually get the edge and get that start. It's not like it's an easy thing to leave Greg Marzhew on the bench. I don't think on the reserve. I don't think he's a guy that should be playing New South Wales Cup every week. I feel like he's way too good for it. But again, if Sandon Smith is rumoured to be starting at 7, where do you fit Greg Marzhew into this team? He's not a centre. He's an out-and-out winger. I just don't think you either have him on the wing or you don't. And I need Fletcher Sharp in that team. He will make a difference to this attack. I spoke about him before. Peter Holler, he is on the extended bench there as well. You got a guy like James Schiller. Guy that was on the right wing. Came from Canberra end of 2024. Started a lot of games on the right wing for Newcastle in the first half of last year before Dom Young came back over. Again, little handy replacement if need be. You got Matt Arthur there as well, another little talented guy. Cody Hopwood, a guy that was rumoured to potentially get his opportunity this year. Would not shock me to see him play games later on in the year. Matt Croker there as well. Thomas Kant, Asu Kapoa, Kyle McCarthy. So there's definitely a few players on this Knights extended bench that could potentially fit into this bench in the Knights definitely somewhat this year. The bench, I'm definitely at least confident about. I definitely think that should be the starting 13. If there's injuries that come across, I think they've got the replacements for them. Are they the best replacements in the world compared to other teams? No, not at all. That's why I've got them coming 14th. But with a new coach, new system, new direction, like a new sort of life, new mentality there in Newcastle, we have to see some sort of improvement, you would think, from Newcastle. I can't see them finishing wooden spoon or bottom 2 again. I think there's a couple teams that will finish lower than them. I do think we see some improvement from the Knights this year. Fletcher Hunt, few games for the Knights last year. Fullback there, had a couple good games, had a couple shockers there as well at fullback. He's actually not even in the top 30. He's on that their train trial New South Wales Cup contract. So is Connor Vitano. We saw him start at fullback a couple games last year. Harrison Graham there as well. A lot of depth here at Newcastle. Is it good depth? Like great depth? No, but the depth is there. There's a lot of caliber guys that can fit on the bench, and if they get the opportunity, maybe they can showcase what they're going to do. Maybe that can actually encourage a lot of these bench players that I've selected to, get more of a leg up, go another gear, knowing if they don't perform up to the level, even some of these starting players, they're not going to be on the team next week. And is Holbrook the type of guys to do that? I think so, potentially. I just hope he doesn't mess it too much with the halves. Anywhere else, I'm completely fine as long as it's not dumb as dog shit, but a little bit of depth for the Knights, which I don't mind. Let's get into their draw analysis, because this podcast is going probably longer than most other teams, but a lot to talk about. So the draw, they have an actual favorable draw, I think, this year. One of the more favorable ones wasn't in my draw analysis videos, like top 5 or 4 easiest. Just fits just outside it, though. So they play obviously 8 teams twice. 3 of those teams actually fit in the top 8. One is in the top 4. So they play the Warriors, the Roosters, and the Raiders twice. Warriors and Roosters finished top 8 last year. Raiders were obviously minor premiers. That means they have to play Rabbits, Tigers, Titans, Manly, and Dragons twice. Rabbits, I think, will be much improved. So let's put them part of the other 3. Tigers, Titans, Manly, and Dragons are teams I don't think will be that great this year. There's definitely a good opportunity for Newcastle there to play 4 of probably the easiest teams twice. That's probably the 4 other teams that I have in my bottom 4, along with Newcastle around them as well. So I definitely think it works out in favour for the Knights. They play 11 games against the top 8. They play 5 games against the top 4. They play 13 games against the outside the 8. 6 games against the bottom 4. Their buys is a tricky one. Buys in round 12, 15, and then 27. So they don't have a buy until round 12. Then they have 2 games and then another buy. 2 buys during your origin period. They won't be missing too many. Probably just Kalen Ponga looking at that one. Maybe Bradman Best there. Otherwise, not too much will be missing. Maybe Dylan Lucas there as well. The round 27 buy is killer. Essentially means they get 2 buys for the whole year unless they're playing finals footy. And then we spoke about 2 home games for the first 7 weeks as well. I've got to wrap this up podcast pretty quick. My laptop is about to die. But that'll do it for the Skooshi Sport podcast. Thank you so much for watching. Knights season preview podcast finishing 14th for the year. I'll see you next week for Storm and Eels. Make sure to go check out the Trade Room first episode. I'll be back with another episode this week. Thank you so much for watching, and cheers.